Oh, this first paragraph, or should I just talk about my essay?
You can talk about your essay.
Yeah.
Do what you like. Then look at your argument.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I can stand here, so because I don't remember everything. Yeah, I'll just read from this, I think, because in this essay I will discuss the topic about NGOs, and my main focus is on Save the Children, the big NGO, and. But don't I see me here? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, he got me. Yeah. And I was focusing about positive and negative sides of NGOs and what goods they can do and what like the negative sides of big Western NGOs can be. And also like my main claim will be that I think it's a good idea to have NGOs, but you need to be aware of the negative sides of what they can do, I guess. Yeah.
So she's saying we need to discuss like the pros and cons of NGOs, right? And your key example is what? Your key example?
I have mainly two key examples, but I'm just focusing on one in the beginning. I see now. What's wrong? I have one about child abuse. I always forgot the English word. Save the Children.
Right, Save the Children.
Mm.
Very famous. Who heard of Save the Children before? Okay, who has never heard of it? Okay, everyone has heard about it? Okay.
Yeah, corporal punishment of children, and about how Save the Children is trying to change that law in all countries because they want it to be against the law to abuse your child in your home. And also I have a claim about child soldiers, that it could be said that child soldiers, people look at them as victims, those NGOs and a lot of scholars. NGOs look at child soldiers as victim, and a lot of scholars have criticized that and said that we could not call them victims because we need to look at the structures and a lot of things like that. And then I said that, but maybe it's a good idea to see kids as victims, and that it's not maybe just a Western definition of the word, that, and maybe we need to have like universal human rights and child protective rights.
Okay, sure. And then I wrote you some comments in the back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what were some comments? So let me see now.
Here.
Oh, okay.
And you can talk.
Sure, we can talk together. So one of our critiques of Save the Children is that it started as a global Western NGO, and so maybe it's not representative, okay? Because it claims to speak on the children's behalf, okay? For example, the children in Japan who are getting the corporal punishment, right? You know what corporal punishment is? What is corporal punishment? It's a what? Yeah, it's like Korean is called like what? Memme, right? I don't know. That's what my kids call it. Okay. So getting physical punishment. Okay. And so Save the Children is saying that it violates human rights, the rights of children. Government should prohibit corporate punishment. Okay. But one critique is that maybe it's like this Western concept that is being applied to these non-Western societies such as Japan. Okay, and then another critique might be that what's another critique that so one critique is that it's not representative, right? And a similar critique can be okay. I gave her two comments. One is that first you wanna balance discussion of Save the Children, okay? Whether or not it is, for example, whether or not it is representative, and she does that. So the paper gives a very nice balanced discussion of Save the Children. But her second claim is that I still agree that certain rights should be universal, okay? Such as the rights of children. The children under 18, they should not serve in the military. They should not work. Okay. And so that claim also needs to be discussed in a more balanced way. A good academic essay always presents a very balanced discussion. Okay? And so, for example, like I mentioned, this was a quote. This was a quote. This was from Huntington Miss, page 447. So there was this Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. So all the nations signed it, including North Korea. Okay? But only 2 nations did not sign it. Who were the 2 nations?
United States.
Right, United States and Somalia, right? And the United States argument was that what? That we have the right to what?
Maybe it says here, and I'm not sure, but could it be where like they have the right to like make their own laws and stuff? Could it be something like that?
Well, that's one, and specifically in the USA, children
Yeah,
under
freedom.
18, they can join the military.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so if you're 17, and I'm not sure about the exact rules, but it's like you can sign up when you're 17 as long as you start your basic training. Is anybody American? No one's American? Okay. Does anyone serve in the military when you're 17? Okay. How old were you when you served? How old were you when you served in the military? Okay, 17. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, you want to come up? Come on, you're a kunde man. Okay. He can be our next Sam Hemington. And be in Korean TV and join the Korean military. Well, what country? Oh, Mexico. First. Okay. What's your name?
Ricardo.
Okay. And when did you join the military?
When?
Yes.
When
How
I
old
was
are you?
17.
17. How old are you now?
22.
22. Why did you join when you're 17?
It's because in Mexico it's not necessary,
Okay.
but it's legal for you, if you wish to enter to the military at the age of 17 to present the military service.
Okay.
So
And was that the right choice for you?
yeah,
Okay.
it's because I wanted to.
That's fine. And then if there was a law that says you have to wait till 18 to join, do you think that'd be a fair law or not fair law?
Actually, it's like a personal election to go and do the military service. You're not obligated to do the military
Sure.
service when you're 18, but
Right.
I
But
was-
what if there was a law that says you cannot sign up?
You cannot?
Yeah, that you cannot. For example, if this treaty says, children, if you're under 18, you're considered a child, you should not serve in the military.
Well, I think that there shouldn't be one. The reason why I think that is because there are some people that do not have like the resources to eat or the resources for a good education. So there's some examples of people that live in small towns
Okay.
with small children that want to eat or have education, and the military in Mexico gives free meals, gives free education to the people that are interested to give this service to the nation.
Okay. And do you think that was a good choice for you?
Yep.
How was serving the military good for you as a 17-year-old?
Well, for
What
me,
did you learn? What did you gain?
well, Mexico is like neutral. We are not in war against anyone, but we're like in the whole world. We're the country with the military that is best trained in the natural incidents
Okay.
and all that kind of stuff.
Like natural disasters?
Yeah, natural disasters. And one example is when the United States had like this incident with one hurricane. They asked the Mexican government for help by the military department, and we helped the United States.
And what did you get out of it personally? What was-
Personally,
yeah.
well, experience, what else, like good attitude, because almost all the people there are like really open. Like, what's the word? I forgot the word, but like being not rude, but like being really strong against many things, because military people are
Like build like endurance?
yeah, endurance.
Okay. That's great. Can do 50 push-ups?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it after class. Anyway, okay. So one critique that people make is that, look, like many liberals, we argue that people who are under 18, such as like 13, 14, 15, they have the right to determine their own sexuality. Okay? So for example, like we went to the gay church on Sunday. Many members are there. They have this activist group called Rainbow Action, and they argue that teenagers have the right to determine if they're gay or not. Okay, they have the right to determine who they are sexually. Okay, and so people say, well, if they have these, sexuality is considered like a very adult thing, right? It's a very So if children have the right to like sexuality or even to have an abortion, they should also have the right to work. Okay. Anyway, I'm just giving you like the counter argument. Okay. So people like Milton Friedman, he's a famous, Nobel Prize economist. He makes those kind of arguments, right? And there's a related argument is that again that maybe you really need like grassroots organizations, specifically unions, because maybe they're the ones who can really claim to speak for these children. And so I spent like 5 minutes Googling. Okay, and then let's read this together. Okay, let me click on this, and then you can read this for me. Okay. So I just Googled like children's right to work, and then this was one of the first articles to pop up. Do I say 하긴 or X? X, okay. The Korean's too hard. All right. So so children in Bolivia fight for their right to work. Okay. So these are some kids are like 14. Okay. Okay. Let's start reading from here. Technically.
Yeah. Technically, Rodrigo and Denya should not be working their jobs. Denya because she's under 14, and Rodrigo because late hours in and out of bars is deemed hazardous work for people under 18. But not only do they work, they are also part of the Union of Child and Adolescent Workers of Bolivia, an organization of young workers united to defend themselves against exploitation. For Rodrigo, the idea that he had many other young people that he and many other young people are legally buried from jobs because of their age is unrealistic and arbitrary.
Arbitrary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more sentence.
Maybe people say they still have children's minds, he said. But there are also adults who are 21 who have child's mind, and there are kids who are 13 who have an adult mind.
Right. Stop. Did you see this last sentence? I thought that was actually a very profound sentence. And he's only like 14, right? So he's saying that there's many people like me who's like 13 and 14, but we already think like adults because we have responsibility to, we have to take care of our family, okay? We have this burden. But then there are many people who are like 21 who they still act like kids, they still think like kids, okay? And so you have to really, you cannot just put an arbitrary line that says like, if you're 18 and over, you're an adult. If you're under 18, you're a child, because it really depends on the person. So this is the counter argument, right? So you need to kind of lay out the, so if you're gonna discuss like Save the Children or this whole issue of, what are children's rights, then kind of lay out the different examples and different arguments, and then tell me like, what do you think? So now that you see these counter arguments and counter examples, how would you revise your essay, if any? Would you keep your essay, or would you revise it?
I would, but I don't think that. I think that children's work, right to work, and child soldiers might be different things.
Explain.
Because right to work, I could really see that, and I could really see that you might need that because your family needs to survive.
Okay.
And education, you maybe not afford education and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But child soldiers, I think that's a more complex issue in the way that many people are actually forced to do it, and if they're not forced to do it by because of abuse and stuff, there might be force from structure. So I it's a similar question, because the question of who's the child,
Okay.
18 or 14. So, but if I wanted to reverse myself, I'd probably focus more on the child soldier and say the things I did now, like what is their own choice and
Okay.
what is made by others. But if I wanted to focus on work, that might be a bit easier for me to do, because then I could say, yeah, the pros and cons of that, and then say, probably I think that children could have the right to work
Okay.
if they have like strong unions and stuff that could support them.
Sure. So then what would the relationship be between like Save the Children and local unions? Do you think they should, that maybe this is like a good partnership? They should work with like these children's unions?
Definitely, because
Okay.
that's more represented from who's a child and not
Okay.
in what country.
And so that might imply that you might have different laws, for different countries.
Yeah.
Okay, instead
Yeah,
of
definitely.
a global universal law. Okay.
Mm.
Anyway.
But they're the same thing. I mean, a different thing.
Okay.
Like maybe you need a universal law for like sexual abuse
Okay,
or
maybe
abuse, but
okay.
maybe not for work. So I think that's a complex issue as well.
Okay. So maybe a universal law for at least certain like basic standards.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, like
so at
human
least
rights standards.
Yeah. So it's like so no like forced so no slavery.
No. Like
Okay.
that.
Right. So no slavery.
Even if the country says that we love slavery.
Right,
that-
okay.
I don't think-
Right, so there still should be a universal law against slavery. But then in terms of children's right to work voluntarily, maybe we can kind of adapt to local circumstances. And then, according to, what's your name, Ricardo? Maybe that we can apply that to the military as well. Because I think most armies in the world today, they actually do not fight.
No.
Right.
I think actually I didn't say that, but the one book I was referring to in the article, they're more about the book is actually about child soldiers in Liberia, and that's more like rebellion kind of.
Sure, but they're kind of forced to fight, right?
Yes,
So
but
it's
I
not
mean
really
that's not
voluntary.
like that's not no, it's not. But it's not like a state army.
Okay.
So that's
So
more.
these are
I should
kinda
be
like
more.
okay.
Yeah, I should more specific about that, because that's more what it's about for them.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And then anyway, so in terms of like grading, is that you? No, this is you. Okay. So anyway, I gave you a B plus because you did have a balanced discussion. You did link it to the reading, so I thought that was good. I thought this was a good essay. But if it made it a little bit more balanced by discussing like that there's counter arguments to a children's labor, then it'd be more of an outstanding paper. Do you guys understand? Okay. There was a related paper on China. I thought it was really good, but she's not gonna come here, so I'll discuss it. Okay. Okay, thank you. Yay, Emily. All right. That's fine. Can I discuss it? Okay, because I thought it was good, and I thought you did what most people, they want to express themselves. Anyway, but because this is a very controversial issue, it's about China's one-child policy. Okay? Who heard about China's one-child policy? Basically everybody, right? It's so famous. Okay? And so, and Amelia talked about why this is bad policy, and she cited Marco Rubio, okay, as one of her key authors. And then my comments were that, again, you want to make it a kind of a balanced discussion. Has anyone heard of Marco Rubio? Does anyone know who he is? He's actually a Republican. Right now he's a leading candidate for the Republican nomination for president. He's a senator from Florida. Okay, and conservative Republicans, they like China or not like China. For the most part, they really do not like China. They don't like China. They don't like Russia. Okay, they're still maybe they're still Cold War mentality. Okay, so oftentimes their arguments are very anti-China, very anti-one-child policy. They say like this is oppression. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you address, it's okay to cite people like Marco Rubio, but I just want you to recognize that he might have a chip on his shoulders against China. And also, I find that even like Wikipedia can be more balanced. So obviously, advanced students should not cite Wikipedia, but there's many interesting articles in Wikipedia that you can cite, such as China Daily. Okay, and then one thing that I noticed is like in 2007, only about 36% of China's population was subject to the one-child restriction, because there's many exceptions, such as if you're ethnic minority, if you live in the farm, if you live in the shigor, jibang, or if or the parents are only children. So there are many exceptions. Okay, and the second point was that a 2008 survey shows that 76% of the Chinese support the one-child policy. Okay, so by having a more balanced discussion, that it's not like everybody who has to do it, and there's actually many Chinese people who actually support this policy, then you can discuss like the pros and cons of the one-child policy. Yes. You want to come up? Woohoo! Why, you want to hit me? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes.
You said that maybe it's not the best idea to use the Marco Rubio, right? As my.
No, it's fine to use Marco Rubio.
The thing is, just let me say, for me, okay, I didn't see him as a politician. Now I'm seeing it from the perspective of like human rights issue.
Okay.
And the thing about the one-child policy in China, it's not just the thing that you cannot have the second child. Maybe you have the third or fourth child, right?
Right.
So even if you are in the countryside, you still are not allowed to have more than 2 children,
Okay.
right?
Right.
So it's not just about that. And even if 76% of Chinese population supports the policy, there are the rest of people, right?
Yes.
Who are oppressed, right? And human rights are oppressed, and children are killed. And this is like, for me, from this, I looked at this from this perspective. So for me, even if they agree, even if they see it's right or they agree with that, they don't want to fight with that. For me, as a global citizen, it's and I'm like for human rights.
Right.
Then
Universal rights.
yes,
Even if the majority do not agree.
yes.
Right.
Yes, and I think this is also the role of international organizations, some of them, right, to protect those people, those minorities.
That's fine. Then say that in the essay. Did you hear this conversation? That
Yeah, and I said that in the essay, like, a bit, not in the same words, but
Not in the
right
same
here,
word.
in my summary. So.
Well, but then you summarize all these like criticism of the one-child policy, right? And
Yes,
then-
because I wrote about this.
Right. And then I'm saying that to make the essay even better,
Yes.
address the counter argument, and then tell me why the counter. Here's an argument that one-child policy is bad. Here's an argument that one-child policy may not be bad. Okay. So lay out the strong arguments on both sides, and tell me why A is still stronger than B. Okay. That yes, 76% of the population support one-child policy. Yes, only 35% are 35% are limited to one child. But despite these counter arguments, my claim stands that this is still an unfair violation of human rights. Okay. So even if only a minority of Chinese people their rights are being violated, that's still a violation.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
whatever
that's the thing.
Right. So then there would be a stronger claim, because Marco Rubio is basically just saying that Chinese people are being oppressed. Okay? Because I read Marco Rubio, and
Okay, I read that. That's the thing what was said in the article. So I wrote just about those things which were in the article.
Okay.
And he said that there are many people, right? And especially he talked about girls, mainly about girls.
About the what?
About girls here, as you can see.
Okay.
Right?
And then,
So,
yeah,
yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes. So, well,
That's
and
true.
I just expressed my opinion. I believe through this.
That sounds fine. So lay out the strongest. So you can include Rubio. That's fine. Okay. But I
used a few
don't-
other articles
you're
as
right.
well.
But you use other articles as well. It's just that when you do an academic essay and you cite these people, you just need to be like maybe just either you need to know and maybe acknowledge like either in the text or in a footnote that Rubio's like he's a famous opponent of the Chinese government. Okay, so
Yes.
he may not be as balanced as like the BBC or even like Wikipedia. Okay, so the BBC would be considered a more credible and neutral source. Okay, that's is that blah blah blah. Oh, and also you want to link to the, you want to make links to the class readings. Okay, so like how does this link to, so in the references you want to include, currents and mints, and then tell me like how does this link to some of the key arguments, some of the key theories that were discussed in the chapter. Okay, do you have any idea?
No, I didn't address this. I just thought we are allowed to write an essay for discussion, like group discussion, about our opinion about something that we talked during class, and we just talked about.
No, that's
China's
fine. You
policy.
don't have to justify yourself. Everything we do is we're just practicing for the midterm essay, right? So if you want to make, so I thought this is a very important topic. It's a very important essay. So how can we make it even better? Okay. And so to make it even better, to make it an A paper, you want to link it to, what did we learn about in the chapter? We learned that, many NGOs are being criticized for what? That they're what? Well, that they're not representative. It's not that they're Western, but it's that, maybe they're not really representing what the Chinese people want. Maybe they're like outsiders. Okay. Okay. Yes, but if you're okay, depends on the context. Okay. Because there are a lot of South Koreans who criticize China too. So don't label all of us as Westerners. There are many people who don't like China. Okay? This universal, dislike. Okay? And number one. Number two is that, so the second criticism is that it's not just that they're not representative, but maybe their strategy is very counterproductive. Okay? So if your strategy is to promote, like, say, human rights in China, then maybe you need NGOs who can have like a dialogue, with the government. You see, as opposed to just saying like the government's bad. And so it's both like practicality, is a strategy working, and also representation. And so there's different critiques you can make about activists and NGOs and non-state actors, and then tell me like how does that relate to this to this controversy? Okay, I mean, are there better ways to persuade China to relax its one-child policy than what Marco Rubio is doing? Okay, so what are some ways to kind of push China to relax their policies? Should we have like revolution, or
Maybe not.
okay, or I don't know. What are some better ways? Maybe you can. So maybe one way might be like instead of using like a human rights argument, Marco Rubio, maybe we can use more of an economic argument, right? So what's the economic argument for having more children?
Like for now, China is actually the Asian, how to say, like they
Yeah, it's an
yeah,
aging, right? It's
yes.
a rapidly aging society,
Yes.
and so you can actually make a strong economic argument that you want, that having more kids is actually better for you economically. Okay, maybe in the old days, there wasn't like enough food to eat and it wasn't good for the economy. But maybe in today's economic model, more children means like more workers. Okay, and so and China actually has a labor shortage, right? And so you can actually get some smart economists like Milton Friedman to make an economic argument to the Chinese government, and they might actually be more persuasive than this kind of Marco Rubio. You're like violating our human rights argument. Do you see? Right. So so these are the kind of insights you can get by reading the chapter and then drawing on these claims and critiques. Okay. So we don't want to say that Marco Rubio's bad. We don't want to but we do want to think about how can we make a better critique? How can we make a critique that would actually persuade the government to make real changes? Okay? Okay. Anyway, thank you very much. Yay! Okay. All right. Our final paper was Juha. Are you here? Okay. Come on up. There. Class is right. Okay. Again, you need to give me your name and when you write the essay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
bad instead. Okay. How can I 취소? Okay. Ooh. Okay. Forget what I said. Okay. All right. So tell me, get close to the audience. Okay. Look at your audience. So what's your paper about?
Well, I wrote about MNCs and especially for about the Korean MNCs these
Okay.
days.
So you wrote about the two faces of MNCs, right?
Yes.
What do you mean by the two faces?
Pros and cons.
Okay, the pros and cons. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also talked about the NGOs, right?
Hmm.
But the NGOs that you discussed in your paper, do they target Korean companies?
Some are, but actually Korean companies do not hear about them
Okay.
these days. So
Right. So most of the global NGOs, they mainly target Western companies.
yeah,
Right,
right.
like Starbucks or Walmart, Apple. Okay. Okay. So what's your plan? So what was your main point of the paper?
Well,
The multinationals are bad.
no. I thought Korean MNCs these days try to make bigger their company. However, through the process, there are lots of conflicts between developing countries' labor unions and the companies. Therefore, I thought the Korean MNCs try to deal with more cleverly with them and more guaranteeing their welfare.
Okay.
So
So Korean multinationals like what? What's an example? Do you have a good example or a bad example?
well, I wrote in this essay that Samsung had very serious conflict between their laborers because of being late. Yeah, they try to regulate their worker more harshly. Therefore, they use the police forces of Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah, and I thought it was very bad side of them.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's fine. And then my recommendation to you is, again, I gave you some comments, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Again, you want to present a balanced discussion on controversial issues. So the question is, are these like NGOs, do they really represent the workers? Or do they just represent the Western interests? Okay. Because one thing that critics often say is that how come these global NGOs are only targeting like companies like Apple? Okay, because actually Western companies like Apple, they generally have the highest labor standards and the highest wages in the host countries. But from an NGO point of view, a company like Apple is much more sexy. Okay, you get much more publicity when you target Apple instead of targeting a local company for like bananas that no one heard of. Okay, so better, so this targeting of multinationals maybe is more for the benefit of the NGO than for the workers themselves. That can be one critique. And then another critique can be, and then another way to maybe make the essay stronger is that if you wanted to do this for the midterm, I want you to give me a very specific example. Okay, either a Western company or a Korean company. Okay, and tell me exactly what did they do that was wrong. Okay, and what did the NGO do to make it better or worse. Okay.
okay.
And so maybe give me a very specific case study of like Samsung. Okay, and what did they do? Okay, and how did the NGOs respond? Okay, because I think Samsung is now a big global brand name, so I think a lot of NGOs are also very interested in Samsung now, right? And so is that a tension good for the workers or bad for the workers? Okay, the con might be that if you make it more and more difficult for multinationals to work in poor countries, then maybe they will be less likely to go there, right? And which is bad for the workers. Okay. another critique is that this is kind of similar to Emily's paper, which is that a lot of these NGOs, they want the company to uphold like very high labor standards, including children should not work. Okay, then what happens to all those children who are working in like Samsung? Should they all be fired and not have money? Do you understand? Right. That's why I think it's very important to do a very detailed case study. Okay. Tell me, like, what was, why did the NGOs protest against Samsung, and what was the result? Did the NGOs make the lives of the workers better, or was it like, or did it make it worse? Does it sound fair?
Yes.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions? No. Okay, now you can lead more discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
You can ask them like, you or you. You can, raise hand like, do you think that like, do you think that people who are like children should be allowed to work or not work? Okay. Do you guys have any feedback for her? Is anybody from like, okay. Well, you guys all have multinationals in your country, right? And then are they generally considered like a good place to work, or not? Okay. So it's good in your country. Okay. It's good for you. Okay. 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 How about in Hong Kong? You're close to China, right? And then is working for Apple in China considered a good thing? Okay. Right. Well, I think in China there's a subcontractor called Foxconn. That's a Taiwanese company, and they get a lot of publicity, a lot of NGO attention. But from what I read, Foxconn actually has higher labor standards than most Chinese companies. A lot of Chinese companies, like, they work you hard and they just run away with the money. But Foxconn, they have like dormitories and regular paychecks, and so it's pretty good. But I think these days the criticism that NGOs make is that you have a lot of like underage workers. And so that kind of leads to the question of like, should underage workers, so if an NGO finds a bunch of underage workers, is that something that the NGO should punish the multinational corporation? Okay? Like give them like bad publicity. Or should they work with a company more privately, not use the media? Okay? So you kind of work it out. So, so by doing a specific case study, maybe you can look at examples where there was a big fight, or they kind of worked it out under the table. Okay? Okay. All right, thank you. Okay. Then, so we have those 3 discussants. And then everybody got my lecture notes, right? Okay. Let me just go over some key concepts from the lecture notes. All right. Okay. So, so chapter 6 is all about, it's not about NGOs per se, it's about non-state actors. NSA is a more broader concept. Okay. Includes organizations, multinational corporations, media, multi-stakeholders. Okay. Let me see now. It encompasses civil society. Okay. And then again, try to link each of the chapters to each other, right? And so, if you think that realism is more persuasive, then realist theories might say that non-state actors are important or not important. Realism, actors, not important. Why? The state is the what?
The state is the only player of international.
Right. They always say that states are the only important players. Okay, and so So non-state actors are a bunch of mogi, flies. Okay, they're pests, but they don't really, they're not the main actors. Okay, but then if you look at, other theories such as liberalism and especially social constructivism, they might have different views, right? That non-state actors might be very important. For example, like liberal theorists, they argue that NSAs are independent actors that help publicize violations of human norms. They pressure states and international organizations. Do you understand? Okay. And so you can think of like examples. Okay. One example, and then on C I make some claims. Okay. And one claim can be that, well, it depends on the context. So if security issues are very important, then maybe non-state actors are less important. State actors are more important. Okay? So one of our famous examples in Korea is this guy named Isaki. Okay? Koreans! That's you. You guys heard of Isaki? Yes. Korean number 2. What's her name? What's your name? Yuna, you heard of Isaki? No, not that Korean. Okay? Alright, so who's Isaki? Do you know? Okay, come on up. Okay, it's very simple. Like, he was a national legislator in the National Assembly, and then he said some things that were, he sang like the North Korean anthem. Go Kim Jong-un! Okay? Anyway, so somebody recorded, what he said. They gave it to the, Korean Central Intelligence Agency, and now he's in jail. Okay? And there are many, civil rights, human rights organizations that said, that's just, freedom of speech, right? He should not go to jail. But, they didn't have, but they could not exercise decisive influence. Okay? Why is it that the South Korean government, why did they put Isaki in jail? Anybody? Why? Why put, if you say North Korea stops, why do you go to jail?
Because the Korean law 국가보안법 bans that.
Right now, but why? Why does the South Korean government have laws against North Korea?
Because Korea and North Korea is just stopping the war.
Yeah, well, we're still technically at war. Okay, so we're still considered a wartime society. And so because we're still technically at war, we have these regulations that still apply. Okay, and so so you cannot do anything that undermines the state. Okay, and praising the enemy undermines the South Korean state. Okay, but the point number 2 is that as external threats decline, then as national security becomes less important because you're already secure, then maybe non-state actors might play a stronger role. Do you see? And so, and a good example might be like Germany and France, right? Like these days in Germany and France, security is already very high, and so non-state actors can play a stronger role. Okay, and actually, and so these days in the West, non-state actors are actually very important, right? That's one reason why the Western governments do not like Syria, because many NGOs have documented all the human rights violations in countries like Syria, okay, and also Zimbabwe, North Korea, and so these non-state actors play a very they have a very strong influence in foreign policy. Okay, you can actually link this. Try to link what we learned to current events, okay? To current events, news, okay? So these days, if you watch, I always listen to the BBC when I'm doing the dishes, 설거지, okay? And then these days, like one of the top news in the BBC is the big protest. Where? Yes, Hong Kong, because British people love Hong Kong. Used to be ours. 우리 땅. Okay. So every day on the BBC, I hear like the protests in Hong Kong, right? And it seems like they want democracy, liberal freedom. Okay. And the question is, do you think they will succeed or no? You still don't know. Okay, it's very hard to say. It's hard to say because maybe like 50 years ago, if Hong Kong was maybe like 50 years ago, this wouldn't have been an issue because there was, conflict, right, between China and the rest of the world. And, maybe 50 years ago, England would not even have given Hong Kong to China, okay? But now, there's peace, between the West and China. And so China has, a little bit less excuse, okay, to give freedom to Hong Kong. But on the other hand, China feels that, well, maybe we're not afraid that, England's going to invade again, but we might be afraid of things like what? You might what? Okay, they might be afraid about, maybe like they're like revolt against the government. That's one concern. But a second concern is, what about places like Tibet or Xinjiang? Okay, that if people can protest in Hong Kong and get away with it, then it might lead to even bigger protests in places like Tibet and Xinjiang, where a lot of people are really angry and they're really oppressed. Okay, and so for the Chinese government, it's also becoming like a national security issue. Okay, and so anyway, so I'm just saying, try to link. Okay, why is it that NGOs in some countries are powerful and effective, and then NGOs in other countries are less effective? Okay, and then my feeling right now is that because of what happened in Xinjiang and Tibet, I think it's going to be very hard for the the Chinese government to free Hong Kong. Okay, because right, because it's going to have an impact on other provinces. Okay. Okay. So again, like the point is, try to link it to key theories in our class. Okay. Another thing is that oftentimes, like even among NGOs and even among NGOs, they often disagree. Okay. So even among Western NGOs, we all believe in like freedom and democracy and liberal rights, but we often disagree how to get there. Okay. And so one good example would be like children's rights. Okay. If you believe in freedom and human rights for children, does that mean they should not work? They're the right not to work or the right to work? Okay, so I think that's an interesting debate. And then another thing to think about is that NGOs, if they want to make like real change, they have to be part of a broad governing coalition. You cannot just throw bombs. Okay. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Maybe a final point might be that most theorists of like NGOs and civil society, for the most part, people who theorize about civil society, they tend to be kind of liberal, like Marxists, and they don't consider like businesses to be part of civil society. But these days, probably like a lot of for-profit businesses are really key actors for civil society and social movements. Can you think of a very profitable business? They're very rich that many activists use. Come on, how do activists organize these days if they want to form a mass social movement? What do? If you want to network with thousands of people, in your
social media?
such as YouTube, Facebook, Right, right. So for example, the revolution in Egypt started with a Facebook group. Okay, that like there was this two policemen who beat up this one guy, like this like sidewalk vendor, and then they started this Facebook group to support this vendor against the police. Okay, and so like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Okay, these are for-profit businesses, very very profitable, but but in a way like they have become very integral to social movements, and that's the reason why you don't see like Facebook and YouTube in China. Okay, because Chinese government understands that certain for-profit businesses they underpin social movements, political movements. And so, they're smart, so they say, no YouTube, no Facebook, nothing that will undermine our control. Sorry about that, in China. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Oh, and also, like, we went to the ODMCC. They're also part of this global movement. Maybe just to close, you guys all have to write me something, but maybe you can share something that you learned. Okay? One person says, service was too long. But, service is actually about 2 hours, but we were like 30 minutes late, so we ended 30 minutes late. Okay. Can I get one person to share something that you learned, something that you did? Okay, why don't you come up? Yes, come on up. So the camera will love you, okay? Let's get one Swedish perspective, you looking at one Hong Kong perspective. You in the back, you haven't talked today. Okay, say something. What did you learn?
What did I learn?
Yes. Well, what did you experience? What did you do?
I really, really enjoyed it. It was a beautiful group of people who you can feel that they have been fighting a lot for their rights. And I think that they are very brave to do those kind of things. And what did I learn? I learned about the Bible. I don't know much about the Bible, or I do. And they had this really interesting meetings where they discussed like different kind of problems after the service. So they had like group meetings like we have, and they had like discussed what they thought about things. And I heard a lot of voices from people who have been oppressed for a long time and how they dealt with difficulties and stuff like that. Yeah.
Did they call you their oppressed, or did they just say like
No, but this one guy, he was really talking about how he has been suffering a lot because of, having not having a girlfriend and stuff like that. Not bad. What was he said? I don't remember his exact word, but he was saying a lot of. Actually, I don't want to share it all because I think it was really private for him. But from this not really confusing, maybe discovering sexuality and stuff.
Okay, so he faced like pressure from parents?
Yeah, in society, I think, like in be like friends and stuff like that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed about LGBTQ in Korea. Like most of them, like natives, they don't tell their parents. So it's basically like you do the gay thing on the weekend and in a hotel, and then that's it.
Yeah, and also they never used the word oppressed, but I could also feel that when he was talking about how they have to make their church legitimate. Legitimate. Yeah. They didn't. Yeah.
You should ask them.
Yeah, I think it's better, but I just got the feeling because they said that they talk about authorities, about how authorities who have the right to do stuff like that, and I thought that was a way of talking about this whole issue about maybe the Pope, and maybe a lot of people said that they should not exist.
It's kind of interesting because I think a lot of the oppression is in their head. They think
Mm.
like, oh, all these bad things gonna happen if I tell my parents. But you don't know because you never told your parents. And so maybe if you do, like, at least tell a relative or or a company worker, maybe it wouldn't be that bad. But they're not taking that first step.
Yeah, because I also get the feeling a lot of people didn't feel that oppressed.
Okay.
So I thought it was really different, and maybe age difference that made a lot of where they were from and stuff like that.
Okay, Koreans versus foreigners.
Mm.
Okay. Anyway, so that was good. We have 30 minutes left. I think we can maybe break up into a small group